It's more of an observation, I think, rather than a question, maybe a route to a question. It seems to me that the culture of photo book publishing seems to be driving in contrary directions. On the one hand, you've got the low-cost, print-on-demand, online possibilities. And at the other extreme, you have the very expensive limited edition. And I suppose the question part is, does the panel see the latter as a response to the former?
Good point. Chris, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, I think so. And certainly, if you want to contemplate doing a book in very small numbers, you're either doing it very cheaply, or using the Blurb model, or doing it on a photocopier at home, or you're going to make you want to make a beautiful thing that's going to be expensive. And certainly, if extrapolating my version of the culture of less books, more titles, less books, means more expensive books, because people are still going to care about making them beautiful. So, yes, I think it is all part of the same phenomenon.
And Gerhard, I mean, do you think that in years to come your books will get more expensive as you go into more beautiful, almost sort of like art-type objects?
No. The book with Ed Rocher was more or less falling from heaven. I had a long discussion with him to reprint, to make facsimiles from his little format books he did in the 60s, yes, because they were all done in small quantities, and at the end they were selling very bad. He had them all in his basement of his house, and then there was a water flood, and most of them were destroyed. That is one of the reasons why they are so expensive, because he printed 500, but they are existing only 120, and others are just destroyed. And but they were all done as limited editions because his resources were limited, yes, and they were all stapled by hand and sometimes done with Xerox machines, and so it was not possible to make more than 500, and he could not store them, and he has no distribution system. So that was the idea of the limited edition. And so I said, okay, let's make a democratic edition now. We will print them in the same way. We try to find the same papers, make a box, and sell the whole shit for, I don't know, $30, so that everybody who's reading about this series of books can buy them. And then he said, no, but it was a limited edition. As I'm an artist, when it is limited, I cannot reprint it 25 years or 40 years later. And so the idea was coming up with this limited edition book of Kerouac. And there was also a reason, because the rights of the text of Kerouac are with the publishing giant in the United States, and they were worried to give us the text for a quantity of, let's say, 5,000 books. Yes, they said, okay, we don't know, yes, and what's going on, and we only want to give it to you for a limited edition. And then it turns out into a limited edition, but let's say that was more an accident for my work. Yes, I see the book as a democratic object, and it should be limited. It should be not limited. It is unlimited when there is a market. It is reprinted. It has. My dream is to have a high quality book for a low price and no limitation. And I'm not an art dealer. I'm not really interested in signed and numbered books. Yes, that's the business of a gallery, and I'm not a gallery.
Thank you. Marcus, I know you've got something you might say.
Just an answer to Paul's, just to tell a little bit the history, for example, for the Google Street project. How it happened was, this guy met or had a talk to Jeho Engström. He said, he showed him a little online project, a digital file Doug Rickett has on his computer. Engström said, you should show this to Schaap. So this guy came up, he sent me a little file and said, hey, look at this work I did with this Google Street View. I said, this looks great. And he said, okay, let me make a blurb dummy. So he made one blurb dummy. He sent me, I said, the blurb dummy is a little bit too big and too expensive. Let's make something more interesting out of it, in this case. So we started to make the white press thing. We make it a little bit more limited, or it felt like a little bit not the real feeling for a book. So now Gerhard was looking at the book just to make a history of the. Maybe he said, "Oh, this is good for a trade edition. We could make maybe 3,000 copies, make it a bit bigger, include more pictures." He will sell out the Steidl edition soon, and finally Benedict Tuscher will call up at the printer and say, "Oh, this is a great project. Can we make a 50,000 copy of it? I mean, make it so big, or sumo." Maybe it's a bit funny, but sometimes all these stories work, and we don't. For example, we don't make these white press things just because we want to hold it. It's more about showing it and giving a platform for, like Julian said, for a kind of a community, and say, here, look, this is a good project, and then find more people, more publishers around. We did this with one of the projects. We get a Kara edition in 1500. So it's more using all these possibilities of printing, of showing the thing, sending PDFs around the world, Facebook it, find a small, limited indie publisher, then you get the next step into the community, like here, and from here, then again, back into a market. And I recommend really, if Wolfgang Tillmans is coming in October to make a lecture here, he has such an incredible, nice history of publishing his own books. He started very small, then he had a chance to make this 15,000 Taschen, 95 books, which made him finally very successful and very popular. Then he go back to Koenig Books, something here and something there, a few in Japan, then back to Taschen. So it's also like creating a publishing history for yourself and your work as a photographer. So there are a few options.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one more question.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a very strong hand up there. Have we got the mic?
If it's me, I can just shout.
Oh, there you go.
A question for you, Martin. With regard to your own books, where do you start now? Because you know, obviously quite well, lots of books out there. Do you start with a photograph and then it comes to a theme and then it may turn into a book, or do you start with the idea of the book and work backwards and produce the photographs that would create the end product?
No, I guess inevitably, you start by shooting a project, and then as you work on it, it feels that it's being somewhere near resolved, and then inevitably you think that could be a book as well. Sometimes you can have a book project which is very tight and very small, but generally they are sort of longer and take more time. So I don't actually start out and say, I'm going to make a book. I end up, or I start out wanting to make work, and then if it's going anywhere and it feels it's got the right momentum, inevitably the book will come into place. So it's the work first and the book later. Okay, well I think that's been a